Today we are continuing the DF Goblin kit car build. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Gray and this is Living Like Gray, and we have been building this DF Goblin kit car here on the channel for the past few videos. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install this coolant reservoir bracket on your DF Goblin. Mine is a full frame kit, number 488. And there aren't any videos on how to install this piece, but there is a forum post. So I figured I'd just look at the forum post and make a video on how to do that for you guys to make it just that much easier in building this car. So you're gonna be using the K22P hardware baggie. It is the coolant tank mount hardware. So basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna take one of the bolts and with a washer on it like this. You're gonna put it through like that. You're gonna do this with both bolts. Next, you take the aluminum spacers that they have, you put those on next. Then you put the bracket on in this orientation here. After you've got the bracket put on, next you're gonna do two more washers on the other side. And then you're gonna do the two lock nuts and secure it all down. Now, I don't know if there's an official torque spec. I'd say use the German torque spec of Coolant, even though this is technically an American car, and just impact it down. You just want this to be solid as possible for this coolant mount. It's not a structural piece or anything like that. It's just to hold your coolant reservoir tank. Basically, the next thing on how you actually mount your coolant reservoir, there's nothing that I can find in the forums about this, but considering they give you this spring right here, and this fits perfectly right here, I don't think this actually screws in. I think it kind of just sits in here like this. I got it. You got it? Okay, so I had some help with that, but basically what you do is you hook the spring through this side, you grab it here and you stretch it out to the other side where it hooks into place, and then that holds your coolant tank in. There is no bolts other than what holds the bracket in. The coolant tank is just held in by the spring. So now that we got the coolant reservoir mounted, we're gonna go ahead and install the steering column. This is one of the things that they really didn't make any videos on, so I looked at the forums, and to my understanding is this just slips over like that and then bolts in here like this. So we're gonna go ahead and try that and basically see how that turns out. So one of the most confusing parts about this, if you have a Goblin and you're not really sure what to do here, is you'll notice that this piece can slide in and out, and even if you mount this thing with just the bolts, it will still slide in and out. One of the keys that you have to remember is you need to keep the snap ring from the donor steering column, because this is what's gonna hold everything together and in place. So be sure you keep the snap ring or get a new one for this process. What I'm gonna go ahead and do first is mount this on here like that with this circle piece facing this way. So in the kit, you get this set of gold hardware here. You get two flat washers, two lock washers, and two of these bolts right here. Everything else is way, way smaller, so all this should go in here like this. On the bolt, put a lock washer, a flat washer, and then you can screw it into the black aluminum piece that's on the steering column. Now, I'm not gonna tighten all this down right now. I'm gonna wait till the end to have a little bit of play so I can adjust stuff. If you wanted to tighten this down right now, you probably could, but I'm gonna go ahead and give myself the option to kind of slightly move stuff as needed and adjust it as needed. So I have a little bit of play in there. That should make it a little easier to install the rest of it. Now, as you can see, I can still slide this shaft in and out, even though this is now hard mounted. And that's gonna be like that until we finally put that snap ring in at the end. Next step is you take this black piece and you're gonna slide it on. There's, to my knowledge, again, no orientation to this really. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take one of the 8 screws, and basically I'm gonna line up these holes here with these screws. And again, just lightly screw them in because I might need the play as I go through the rest of the assembly. So I just want to screw these in to where they are just enough grabbing the threads, and I'm going to go back and tighten everything down later. DF Goblin gives you some adjustment here. There is a reason for that, and I'll show you guys what that reason is later. Alright, so see, I have some play there. That's just for some adjustment later. I'm going to pull this steering rack out to about here. Next piece we're going to slide on is this piece right here. What you want is the orientation is you want these you want one of these flat pieces kind of facing up at a slight angle and then the other one down at a slight angle to line up with these holes like this. This is where your turn signal is going to mount, and this is why DF Goblin gives you that adjustment. So that should sit flush like that. Alright, so after you get that, again, I'm leaving some adjustment in there. You're going to take the bearing from your donor car, and you're going to have to slide this in here and put it flush with the rest of the steering column. Now the key is you want to get that snap ring where that snap ring seats right here. You want that to be available so you can put the snap ring on. So I'm gonna get my snap ring pliers and attach that. Okay, so next, even after you put the snap ring into the shaft with the bearing, this can still slide forward. So what you need to do is you'll see 3 little places to screw in screws right here. And that's when you're gonna take the 3 smallest screws and you're gonna screw them in to these spots. These you can go ahead and tighten down. There's no adjustment here. These you can go ahead and tighten all the way down using an Allen wrench. Basically what these screws do is they just overlap the bearing a little bit and they hold it in place, while these 2 screws hold this whole assembly in place. So now it can't go in or out, and that will hold your steering wheel at the right position from the rest of the body. Now what we can do is, now because you have this play, you can adjust this as needed, and once you get this to a good adjustment point, you can go through and tighten all these down. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put on the turn signal switch. Now from the original Goblin, you had 2 switches, one on either side of the wheel. You had a turn signal switch and a windshield wiper switch. Now obviously you don't need the windshield wiper switch anymore unless you're planning on running a windshield or windshield wipers on this, which I don't know why you would. So this switch you don't need. Now the turn signal switch you do need, and it's gonna go right here on this side of the steering wheel. How we mount it is, first you gotta take these 2 brackets and then the other 2 screws of the 8 screws that were in the kit. What you're gonna do is there are 2 sides, as you can see. There's a small hole and then a longer kind of rectangular hole here, and then it slopes upwards like this. You want these mounted to here like this, where it creates a bigger connection. This is how you want it mounted, just like this. So what you want to do is take those 2 screws, go ahead and screw these things in the way I showed you. Now I am screwing these things down, but I'm just doing finger tight because there might be a need for some adjustment here as well. Now originally, these clicked in to the steering column, as you can see through these 2 tabs here. Now we're going to be using these 2 tabs to slide into this new spot. It might help to loosen these out a little bit to allow you to get these in all the way. Just like that, you can hear a click. That means it's snapped into place. And you just want to make sure that it's pushed up all the way against the steering column here, and you want to tighten it down. Again, this is where some level of adjustment comes into play, is there are small slots in these that will allow you to move it back and forth. These parts I would recommend not powder coating, but you can paint them, because if you powder coat them, there won't be enough room for this to click into place and you'll have to file down the inside. Or if you do powder coat them, do not powder coat where these plastic clips connect. Now as you can see, I've got that tightened down. I might want to tighten that a little more because there is still some play there, so I might want to adjust that backwards a bit. The only play that I'm feeling is coming from these bolts right here. So overall, I'd say that's pretty tight, and we're good to tighten everything else down. Now here's where you can adjust where you want this positioned. If you want it way up here, you can position it way up here. Don't know why you do that. Or you could set it more at a lower position. Now if you really want to get crazy, I guess you could flip this around and have this on the other side, but then it would be blocking this right here, or you could kind of tilt it downwards more probably. But I'm gonna go ahead and just leave it at this lowest position, and I can come back later and adjust this if I don't like where it's positioned. But that's one of the cool things that DF does, is they do allow you to have some level of adjustability, so you can kind of tailor your car to be exactly the way that you want. So if you're racing or if you're just driving this more often, it's more bespoke to the driver. Now all of this is tightened down. That switch works. We would just need to plug it into the harness here, and I need to tighten these bolts down right here. Next, I'm going to use a 14mm socket. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this bracket down. This is one of those things that you don't want coming undone, so I just used an impact to tighten it down. If you want to try to use some specific torque spec, you can maybe match it to this torque spec back here. But again, German torque spec, we're going with Coolant tight. Now that I have all that tightened down, I'm going to put in the turn indicator canceller. Basically, this goes right here like this and goes in line with the little switch for the turn signal right here. So that's gonna go right there like that. And we're gonna go ahead and tighten this down. This is for when you turn the wheel, it'll cancel your turn indicator when you turn it back straight. This is pressure fit on here using these screws, so you'll want it pretty tight. You might wanna use some thread locker, but that is up to you. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this steering wheel here. You mount it just like this. You use the 6 screws from the baggie, and you just go around and tighten all these down. Again, you might wanna use thread locker here. This is the standard wheel kit from DF. They do have the upgraded suede kit. If you do have the suede kit, you could turn to the forums if it does look different than what I'm showing you here. Now that you have the steering wheel assembled to this piece right here, you can go ahead and put it on like that. We're gonna go ahead and test the steering wheel canceller. So say you got your blinker on, you do your turn that way, then you go back this way, it should snap it back up like that, like it would in a real car. Then you can test it the other way, you're turning right, turn it back this way, cancels it, it goes back straight. So now that we know that works, we can really tighten everything down. We can really tighten the steering wheel canceller down if you didn't already. We can put the steering wheel all the way on. So we went ahead and put the steering wheel on. Normally you'd put the donor nut back on here, but we lost ours, so we can't do that. We gotta order one. So until then, I've got a quick release steering wheel, probably a little too quick for my taste, but that's pretty much how you do it. You just gotta put your donor nut back on here and it is fully assembled as long as everything is working. Now, one of the keys here is when you put the steering wheel on and the turn signal canceller on, you wanna make sure that your car is aligned straight. Now, if you haven't gotten your alignment done like ours, get it close to where it's at least pointing the same direction and it's not cranked all the way to the right or left. Find the center of the steering rack and mount it right there with the turn signal canceller and the wheel lining up properly. You can always adjust them later, but it is a quick tip that will save you a little bit of time if you at least get it close when you first put it on. That's gonna do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any more questions about the DF Goblin or the assembly of the DF Goblin, please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to help you guys build your Goblins or get you ready to build your Goblin. So go check out the other videos we have in this playlist as well. I'll put a link to that in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.